The library was almost empty at 2 in the morning. Maya Rodriguez sat at her usual corner desk, the one near the window where nobody bothered her. Her laptop screen glowed in the darkness, but she wasn't looking at it anymore. She was crying and she didn't even care who saw. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the university billing office. Past due, final notice. She already knew what it said. The same message had been sitting in her inbox for 3 weeks now. $3,000. That's what stood between her and continuing her education. $3,000 might as well have been $3 million. Maya wiped her face with the sleeve of her worn-out hoodie, the same hoodie she'd been wearing for 2 days straight because she hadn't had time to do laundry. Between her shifts at the diner, the grocery store, and the weekend cleaning job, when was she supposed to find time for laundry? When was she supposed to find time for anything? Her biology textbook sat closed beside her laptop. She'd tried to study for tomorrow's midterm. Really tried. But the words just blurred together after her 12-hour shift. She'd served breakfast, lunch, and dinner to people who probably spent more on one meal than she made in a week. And she'd smiled through all of it because tips paid for her mother's medications. Her mother. Maya's chest tightened thinking about her. The wheelchair-bound woman waiting at home in their tiny apartment. The apartment where the electricity had been shut off yesterday because Maya had to choose between the power bill and her mother's prescriptions. She'd chosen the prescriptions. She'd always choose the prescriptions. Maya picked up her phone and looked at her bank account. $42. $42 until Friday. And Friday's paycheck was already spoken for. Rent was due. The landlord had been patient, but patience had limits. She thought about dropping out. The idea had been creeping into her mind more and more lately. Maybe college wasn't meant for people like her. People who couldn't afford to just be students. People who had to work 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. People who fell asleep in the library at 2 a.m. because going home meant dealing with reality. Her roommate kept asking why she didn't just ask for help.
Ask who? Ask how?
Maya had filled out every scholarship application she could find. She'd gone to the financial aid office so many times the staff knew her by name. There was no more help. The system had given her what it could, and it wasn't enough. She opened her laptop again. Her social media feed was full of her classmates posting about their weekends, parties, concerts, spring break trips. They complained about hard tests and boring lectures. They had no idea what hard really meant. They had no idea what it felt like to choose between eating lunch and buying a Scantron for an exam. Maya had never posted anything personal online. She kept her profiles basic, generic. She didn't want pity. She didn't want people to know that she sometimes slept in her car between shifts because driving home and back wasted gas money. She didn't want them to know that she'd lost 15 pounds because she gave most of her meals to her mother, but something broke inside her that night. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was just the overwhelming weight of carrying everything alone for so long. She clicked on the status update box and started typing. The words poured out of her, raw, honest, unfiltered. She wrote about the 3 jobs, about her mother, about the shut-off electricity and the overdue tuition, about studying by flashlight and choosing between food and medication, about the midterm she was going to fail tomorrow because she was too tired to think, about feeling invisible while drowning in plain sight. She wrote about the shame of poverty, about how people assumed if you were struggling, you just weren't trying hard enough, about working 80 hours a week and still being broke, about the guilt of wanting something better while her mother needed her, about the professors who marked her absent when she was actually at work, trying to survive. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She didn't stop to think, didn't edit, didn't calculate how it might sound or who might see it. She just wrote until there was nothing left inside to say. Then she looked at what she'd written. It was a mess, rambling and emotional and desperate. Everything she'd kept hidden for 2 years spilled out in a few paragraphs. Her finger hovered over the delete button, but she didn't press it. Instead, she pressed post. The screen refreshed. Her words were out there now. Public, permanent, vulnerable. Maya immediately regretted it. What had she done? She closed her laptop quickly as if that would somehow take it back. Her heart pounded. People were going to see this. People were going to know. Her classmates, her professors, maybe even her employers. She shoved her textbook into her backpack. She couldn't think about the midterm anymore. She couldn't think about anything except the post she'd just made. The exposure, the weakness she'd just admitted to the world. The library was so quiet she could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Each second felt like a hammer blow. What had she done? What had she done? Maya put her head down on the desk. The cool surface felt good against her hot face. She was so tired. Tired of working. Tired of worrying. Tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Tired of being strong when she felt like she was breaking into 1,000 pieces. She closed her eyes. Just for a minute, she told herself. Just until the panic subsided. Just until she could think clearly enough to figure out how to delete that post before too many people saw it. The library lights hummed above her. Somewhere in the building, a door closed. Outside, a car drove past. Normal sounds. Regular life continuing while hers felt like it was falling apart. Maya didn't mean to fall asleep. But exhaustion won. Right there at her corner desk with her hoodie as a pillow and her phone buzzing with notifications she couldn't hear. She drifted off into the deep sleep of someone who had nothing left to give. Maya woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating across the desk. Her neck hurt from sleeping in such an awkward position. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. The library, the post, the midterm. She grabbed her phone to check the time. 7 in the morning. Her exam was at 9. But that's not what made her freeze. 347 notifications. Her heart stopped. The number just sat there on her screen. Impossible and terrifying. 347. She'd never had more than 10 notifications at once in her entire life. With shaking hands, she unlocked her phone. Her social media app was exploding. Comments, shares, messages from people she'd never met. Her post had been shared over 50,000 times. 50,000. Maya felt sick. This couldn't be happening. This had to be some kind of mistake. She started scrolling through the comments. They went on forever. Students from other universities sharing their own stories. Single parents talking about working through school. People saying they'd lived in their cars. People saying they'd gone hungry. People saying they understood. This is exactly what I'm going through right now, one comment said. Thank you for making me feel less alone. I worked 4 jobs during college and still graduated with debt. The system is broken, another person wrote. But there were other comments too. Harsher ones. Why didn't you just ask for help? This sounds like attention seeking. Get a better job if you're struggling. Those comments stung, but they were drowned out by the supportive ones. Hundreds of people saying they'd been there, saying they saw her, saying they cared. Maya's hands trembled as she kept scrolling. A local news station had commented asking if she'd be willing to do an interview. An interview? About what? About being poor? About failing? Her phone buzzed again. A direct message from someone named Professor Chen. Maya didn't recognize the name, but the preview showed. I'm a professor at your university. Please meet with me. This is important. Maya's stomach dropped. A professor? She was going to get in trouble. Maybe expelled. You couldn't just post about the university like that, could you? Maybe there was some rule she'd broken. She stood up too quickly and her vision went spotty. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning? She couldn't remember. The library was starting to fill up with early morning studiers. A few people glanced at her, and Maya wondered if they'd seen her post. If they knew. If they were judging her. She packed up her stuff and headed outside. The morning air was cold, and she realized she was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. She probably smelled. She definitely looked terrible. And in 2 hours she had a midterm she hadn't studied for. Her phone kept buzzing. More notifications. More shares. More comments. It was like watching a wildfire spread, and she was standing in the middle of it with no way to put it out. Maya walked to the student center. She needed coffee, maybe food, definitely a bathroom where she could wash her face and try to look somewhat human. Inside, she bought the cheapest coffee they had and took it to a corner table. She finally opened the message from Professor Chen. Maya, I saw your post. I'm in the sociology department. What you shared is incredibly important, and I believe it represents a much larger issue at our university. Many students are suffering in silence. Would you be willing to meet with me today? I want to help. And I think together we might be able to create real change. My office is in Harris Hall, room 304. I'll be there all day. Maya read it 3 times. Create real change? What did that even mean? And why would a professor care about her situation? Professors had tenure and salaries and lives that didn't involve choosing between electricity and medication. But something about the message felt genuine. Maybe it was because Professor Chen hadn't said, "I'm sorry," or, "That's so sad." She'd said, "This is important and we might be able to create change." Maya looked at the time. 8:15. She could go to the midterm and fail it, or she could skip it and fail it anyway. Either way, she was probably failing. Her phone buzzed again. Her roommate, Tessa, "Girl, your post is everywhere. Are you okay?" "Where are you?" Maya typed back. "Library." "Then maybe not okay. It's all over the place. Everyone's talking about it." "The whole campus, come home. We need to talk." Maya didn't want to go home. Home meant her mother asking questions. Home meant no electricity and the reality of her situation staring her in the face. Instead, she pulled up her post again. The numbers had grown. 60,000 shares now. The comments were in the thousands. People were tagging their friends. News sites were picking it up. Someone had created a hashtag, student struggle stories. Other students were sharing their own experiences. The girl who'd been homeless last semester. The guy who donated plasma twice a week to afford textbooks. The single dad taking night classes. Story after story after story. Maya had opened a door she hadn't known was closed. All these people had been carrying their struggles alone just like her. And now they were all talking, all sharing, all supporting each other. But she still felt exposed, vulnerable, like she'd stripped naked in front of strangers and now everyone was looking. A group of students walked past her table, and she heard one of them say, "Did you see that post from the girl in bio?" Maya's face burned. She pulled her hood up and stared at her coffee. "Yeah, it's intense. Made me realize how lucky I am. I know someone should start something, like a fund or something." They kept walking, their voices fading. Maya sat frozen. People were talking about her life, about her pain. It felt weird and wrong and somehow right all at the same time. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hi Maya, this is Channel 7 News. We'd love to interview you about your story and the response it's gotten. Would you be available today?" Then another message. "This is the campus newspaper. Can we talk to you?" Then another. "Hi, I'm a student here and your post inspired me to start a crowdfunding campaign to help you. Is that okay?" Maya's head spun. This was too much. Way too much. She just wanted to vent, to let out the pressure that had been building for months. She hadn't wanted this. This attention, this exposure, this whatever this was. She stood up, leaving her half-finished coffee, and walked out of the student center. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to move, to think, to breathe. The campus looked the same as always. Students rushing to class. People sitting on benches scrolling through phones. The world hadn't changed. But somehow everything had. Maya found herself walking toward Harris Hall. Maybe talking to Professor Chen would help. Maybe it would make things worse. But sitting alone with her spinning thoughts wasn't helping anything. She climbed the stairs to the third floor and found room 304. The door was open. Inside, a woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair looked up from her computer. "Maya?" she asked gently. Maya nodded, suddenly unable to speak. "Come in. Close the door if you'd like. You're safe here." Safe. When was the last time Maya had felt safe? She stepped inside and Professor Chen gestured to a chair. The office was small but warm, filled with books and plants and photos of smiling students. "I imagine you're feeling overwhelmed right now," Professor Chen said. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She nodded again. "What you did took courage. Real courage. And I know it probably doesn't feel like it right now, but you've started something important." "I didn't mean to," Maya whispered. "I was just tired. I just needed to say it out loud. Sometimes that's exactly when we need to speak, when we're too tired to keep pretending." Professor Chen leaned forward. "Maya, I want you to know that you're not alone. Not anymore. And more than that, I think your voice might be exactly what this campus needs to hear." Maya looked up. "What do you mean?" And that's when Professor Chen told her about the emergency meeting. About the administrators who'd already seen her post. About the conversations happening in faculty meetings and student groups. About change that might actually be possible. For the first time in hours, Maya felt something other than panic. She felt hope. Professor Chen's office became Maya's safe space over the next few days. While the internet exploded with her story, she hid there trying to make sense of everything that was happening. The crowdfunding campaign that stranger had mentioned, it had raised $15,000 in 3 days. 15,000. Maya couldn't wrap her head around it. Strangers from all over the country sending money to help her. People she'd never met believing in her enough to donate their own hard-earned cash. But with the support came complications she hadn't expected. Her manager at the diner, Rick, called her into his office on Thursday. She knew something was wrong the moment she walked in. He wouldn't look at her. "Maya, I'm sorry, but I have to let you go." The words hit her like a punch. "What? Why?" Rick shifted uncomfortably. "Look, your story went viral. People have been coming in asking about you, taking pictures of the diner, posting reviews saying we don't pay our staff enough. Corporate's getting heat and they want it to stop. So you're firing me for telling the truth?" "I'm firing you because it's bad for business." He at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. I really am. You're a good worker." Maya walked out of that office in a daze. One of her 3 jobs gone. The money from the crowdfunding would help, but it wouldn't last forever. And she'd still need income. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd exposed the system that was failing her, and the system had struck back. Walking across campus that afternoon, Maya noticed people staring, whispering, pointing. Some smiled supportively. Others looked away quickly like poverty was contagious. A girl she'd never spoken to stopped her near the library. "You're Maya, right? The one who wrote that post?" Maya nodded, tensing. "Thank you," the girl said, her eyes welling up. "I've been living in my car for 2 months. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was failing. But you made me realize it's not us. It's the system." She hugged Maya before walking away, leaving Maya standing there with tears running down her own face. That kept happening. Students approaching her in hallways, in the cafeteria, outside classrooms, sharing their stories, their struggles. Some brought her food. One guy gave her a gas card. A girl from her biology class handed her notes from all the lectures she'd missed. But not everyone was supportive. Online, the comments had turned uglier. Why is she complaining when people gave her money? Sounds like she just wants attention. If she can't afford college, she shouldn't be there. The worst ones questioned why she'd needed help in the first place. Get a better job. Stop making excuses. I worked through college and didn't complain. Those comments dug deep. Maya found herself reading them late at night, each one confirming fears she'd had all along. That she wasn't trying hard enough. That her struggle was her own fault. That she deserved her situation. Professor Chen found her crying in her office one afternoon, phone in hand, scrolling through hateful comments. "Stop reading those," the professor said firmly, taking the phone. "Those people don't know you. They don't know your life. But what if they're right?" Maya whispered. "What if I am just making excuses? You're working 80 hours a week while caring for your disabled mother and maintaining college coursework. What exactly do you think you're making excuses about?" Maya didn't have an answer. The university administration scheduled a meeting. They wanted to talk about the issues Maya's post had raised. Professor Chen went with her, which was good because Maya's hands shook the entire time. 5 administrators sat around a conference table. They all had kind faces and concerned expressions. They said things like, "We take student welfare seriously, and we're committed to supporting our students." But when Maya asked about concrete changes, their answers got vague. "We'll look into it. We need to study the data." These things take time. Maya left that meeting feeling hollow. They'd listened, but had they really heard her? That night, she sat in her apartment with Tessa. The electricity was back on thanks to the crowdfunding money. Her mother was asleep in the next room, comfortable for the first time in weeks. "What do I do now?" Maya asked. "Everyone's watching. Everyone has an opinion, and nothing's actually changing." Tessa looked at her seriously. "You keep going. You keep talking. You don't let them ignore this anymore." "I don't know how to do that. I'm just a student. You're the student who broke the internet. You're the one everyone's listening to." That's power, Maya, real power. The idea terrified her. But it also sparked something. A tiny flame of determination. The next day, Professor Chen introduced Maya to other students who'd reached out after her post. There was David, who'd been working nights at a warehouse. Lisa, who'd been skipping meals to save money. Tom, whose anxiety had gotten so bad from financial stress that he'd almost dropped out. They met in an empty classroom. 6 students total, all carrying similar burdens, all inspired by Maya's honesty. What if we formed a group? Lisa suggested. Made this into something bigger than just one post? Like what? Tom asked. Like a movement, David said. We call out the problems. We push for real solutions. We make them listen. Maya felt something shift inside her. This was bigger than her personal struggle. This was about every student sitting in that room. Every student like them across the campus. Across the country. We'd need a name, she said quietly. They brainstormed for hours. Finally, Lisa said, what about visible struggles? Because we're making the invisible visible. It was perfect. Over the next week, visible struggles grew. They created social media accounts, shared resources for students in crisis, posted stories from dozens of students facing similar challenges. They organized a rally on the main quad. 200 students showed up. Then 300. Then 500. Maya stood on a makeshift stage, microphone in hand, looking at hundreds of faces. Some she knew. Most she didn't, all of them struggling. All of them tired of being invisible. She spoke about the 3 jobs. About her mother. About the choice between electricity and medication. She spoke about the shame and the silence and the fear. And she spoke about change. We're not asking for pity, she said, her voice growing stronger. We're demanding a system that works for all students, not just the ones who can afford it. The crowd erupted in cheers. But as Maya stood there, overwhelmed by the response, her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A text from her mother's caregiver. Call me, it's urgent. Maya's blood ran cold. She handed the microphone to Professor Chen and rushed off the stage, dialing as she ran. What's wrong? Is she okay? She's at the hospital, Maya, she fell. You need to come now, everything else disappeared. The rally. The movement. The viral post. None of it mattered. Maya ran across campus to her car, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. The hospital was 20 minutes away. It felt like hours. When she finally got there, her mother was in a bed, looking small and fragile. Bruises were already forming on her arms. The doctor said she'd fallen trying to reach something from her wheelchair. No broken bones, but they wanted to keep her overnight for observation. Maya held her mother's hand, fighting back tears. I'm sorry. I should have been there. You were doing important things, her mother said weakly. I'm proud of you, mija. Nothing's more important than you. That night, Maya slept in a chair beside her mother's hospital bed. She thought about the rally, about the movement she'd started, about the changes everyone was demanding, but she also thought about the cost. The time away from her mother, the stress, the constant pressure of being the face of a cause she'd never asked to represent. Her phone kept buzzing with messages, updates about the rally, media requests, students wanting to share their stories. The movement was growing, but Maya felt herself shrinking under the weight of it all. In the morning, her mother was stable enough to go home. Maya took her back to their apartment and got her settled. Then she sat on her bed and cried, not the desperate tears from the library that night. Different tears, tired tears, overwhelmed tears, confused tears. She'd wanted to help. She'd wanted change, but she hadn't expected it to cost so much. She hadn't expected to feel so pulled in different directions. Between her mother and the movement. Between her own survival and everyone else's expectations. Tessa found her there hours later, still sitting in the same spot. Talk to me, Tessa said. And Maya did. She talked about the guilt. About feeling like she was failing her mother while fighting for change. About not knowing how to balance everything. About wondering if speaking up had been a mistake after all. It wasn't a mistake, Tessa said firmly. But you can't do everything alone. You need help too. Maya laughed bitterly. That's what started all of this. Then maybe it's time to accept it. Really accept it. That night, Maya made a decision. She couldn't be everything to everyone. She couldn't save the world and care for her mother and maintain her grades and keep herself together all at the same time. Something had to give. She just had to figure out what. Maya made a choice that changed everything. She couldn't keep burning herself out trying to be everywhere at once. So she decided to focus on what mattered most. Her mother's health, her own well-being, and sustainable change rather than explosive action. The first thing she did was hire a part-time caregiver for her mother. It felt wrong spending the crowdfunding money on help when she'd always managed alone, but Tessa's words kept echoing in her head. You need help too. Mrs. Patterson was a retired nurse who lived 3 blocks away. She came 4 afternoons a week, giving Maya time to attend classes and study without constantly worrying. The first day Maya came home to find her mother laughing at something Mrs. Patterson had said, she cried with relief. Her mother wasn't just being cared for. She was happy. With her mother's situation more stable, Maya could think clearly for the first time in months. She looked at visible struggles and realized it had grown beyond anything she could manage alone. The social media accounts had thousands of followers. Students from 20 different universities had reached out wanting to start chapters. News outlets called weekly. She gathered the core group in Professor Chen's office. I can't do this alone anymore, she told them honestly. I thought I could, but I was wrong. We need structure. We need organization. We need to share the responsibility. David nodded. You've been carrying everything. It's too much for one person. They spent hours planning. Lisa would handle social media. Tom would coordinate with other campus groups. David would manage the website. Professor Chen would serve as faculty advisor and help navigate university politics. Maya would focus on advocacy work, speaking at events when she could, but not burning herself out trying to attend everything. It felt like exhaling after holding her breath for weeks. The university administration reached out again. This time they had proposals, real ones. They wanted to create an emergency fund for students in financial crisis. They wanted to establish a campus food pantry. They wanted to reform their policies on absences for students working multiple jobs. Your movement has forced us to examine gaps in our support system, the dean of students admitted. We should have seen these issues before. We're sorry we didn't. Maya appreciated the apology, but she pushed for specifics. How much money in the emergency fund? When would the food pantry open? What exactly would the new policies say? Professor Chen taught her how to negotiate, how to push for concrete commitments instead of vague promises, how to get things in writing. Over the next few months, things slowly changed. The emergency fund was established with $50,000 in initial funding. The food pantry opened in the basement of the student center, stocked with non-perishables, fresh produce, and hygiene products. The university revised its attendance policies to accommodate students who had to work, but Maya's personal life got harder before it got better. Her biology grades had tanked. The professor, Dr. Williams, called her to his office. She expected disappointment or judgment. Instead, he offered understanding. I saw what you've been dealing with, he said. I'd like to offer you a chance to make up the work you missed. It won't be easy, but I think you can do it. Maya almost cried. Why would you do that? Because good students shouldn't fail because they're struggling. They should get support so they can succeed. She threw herself into catching up. Late nights in the library again, but different this time. She wasn't alone. Other students from visible struggles studied with her. They shared notes, explained concepts, kept each other motivated. The movement kept growing. A student at a university 3 states away started a chapter after reading Maya's story. Then another. Then 10 more. Visible Struggles was becoming national. Media attention intensified. Maya was invited to speak at educational conferences, to write articles, to appear on podcasts. Everyone wanted to hear from the girl whose late-night post had sparked a movement. She said yes to some opportunities and no to others. She was learning her limits. One interview stood out. A reporter asked, "Do you regret posting that night? Given everything that's happened, would you do it differently?" Maya thought carefully. I regret that I had to be that desperate before anything changed. I regret that so many students are still suffering in silence. But I don't regret speaking up. Not anymore, the reporter pressed. Even though you lost your job? Even though you've faced criticism? Especially because of those things. They prove exactly why we need this movement. The system punishes honesty. It punishes vulnerability. We're trying to change that. The interview went viral too. Clips circulated on social media. More students reached out with their own stories. The wave kept building. But waves crash eventually, and Maya felt herself being pulled under. She had a breakdown in the middle of the library. The same library where this all started. She was studying for finals, surrounded by textbooks and notes, when suddenly she couldn't breathe. Panic attack. Full-blown. Lisa found her hyperventilating in the bathroom. "I can't do this anymore," Maya gasped. "Everyone needs something from me. Everyone wants me to speak or share or lead. And I'm just tired. I'm so tired." Lisa sat with her until the panic subsided. Then she said something Maya needed to hear. "You started this movement, but it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to all of us. You can step back. The work will continue, but everyone expects you to be human, to have limits, to take care of yourself. And if they don't, that's their problem, not yours." Maya took 2 weeks off from Visible Struggles activities. She focused on finals, on her mother, on herself. The world didn't end. The movement didn't collapse. Other students stepped up and carried the work forward. She passed her biology class. Barely, but she passed. More importantly, she learned something crucial. Sustainable change requires sustainable effort. Burning out helps no one. During winter break, Maya took stock of her situation. The crowdfunding money had lasted longer than expected because she'd been careful with it. Her mother was doing well with Mrs. Patterson's help. The university had implemented 2 of their 3 proposed changes, with the 3rd in progress. Visible Struggles now had chapters at over 30 universities. Students were organizing, advocating, supporting each other. The movement had taken on a life of its own. Maya's role had shifted from leader to catalyst. She'd sparked something, but others had built it into something lasting. She started getting emails from graduate programs. Several had reached out after seeing her advocacy work. They wanted students who understood systemic problems, who could speak truth to power, who had lived experience with inequality. One email stood out: a public health policy program with a full scholarship, full ride, no loans, a stipend for living expenses. Maya stared at that email for hours. Graduate school had seemed impossible 3 months ago. Now someone was offering to pay her to continue her education, but accepting meant leaving her mother. Moving to a different city, trusting that the support system she'd built would hold, she talked to her mother about it that night. "I don't want to leave you," Maya said. Her mother took her hand. "Mia, I don't want you to stay because you feel obligated. I want you to go because you deserve opportunities. But who'll take care of you? Mrs. Patterson will increase her hours. Your aunt can help more. I'll be okay. You've spent 2 years putting your life on hold for me. It's time to live for yourself," Maya cried. Her mother cried. They held each other in the small apartment that had witnessed so much struggle. "I'm scared," Maya admitted. "I know, but you've already done the scariest thing. You spoke up when you had nothing left. Everything else will be easier than that." Maya wasn't sure her mother was right, but she wanted to believe it. That night she wrote a response to the graduate program. She wrote about her journey, about the struggle and the movement and the changes they'd created, about wanting to turn personal pain into systemic solutions. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 days later, they accepted her. Maya was going to graduate school. She was going to study public health policy. She was going to turn her lived experience into expertise that could help others. But first, she had to finish her sophomore year. She had to ensure the movement she'd started would continue without her constant presence. She had to prepare her mother for the transition. She had to prove to herself that speaking up that exhausted, desperate night in the library had been worth it. Spring semester started with new energy. Maya attended classes with renewed focus. She'd declared a minor in public policy to complement her biology major. She was building toward something now, not just surviving day to day. Visible Struggles held a campus-wide event in February. They called it Stories of Struggle, Stories of Strength. Students shared their experiences. Faculty talked about changes they'd witnessed. Administrators presented updates on new support programs. Maya spoke last. She talked about the night she'd almost given up, about the post that changed everything, about the students who'd turned her moment of desperation into a movement for change. "We're not victims," she told the crowd. "We're students who deserve better, and we're not going to stop fighting until every student has what they need to succeed." The applause was deafening. After the event, a freshman approached her nervously. "I'm struggling like you were." "What should I do?" Maya smiled. "First, know you're not alone. Second, reach out for help. Use the resources we've fought for. And third, don't suffer in silence. Your struggle doesn't make you weak. Speaking about it makes you brave." The girl hugged her, whispering thanks. Maya realized something in that moment. She'd started this journey thinking she was broken, thinking her struggle was a personal failing. Now she understood. Her struggle was real, valid, and most importantly, it was systemic, and systemic problems require collective solutions. 2 years had passed since that exhausted night in the library. Maya stood backstage at her graduation ceremony, wearing a cap and gown that felt surreal. She was actually graduating. With her biology degree. With her public policy minor. After everything, she'd made it. You ready? Tessa asked, adjusting Maya's tassel. Maya laughed nervously. To give a speech in front of thousands of people? Not even a little bit. You've given dozens of speeches. Never at graduation. Never with my mom watching. Never as the student speaker representing my entire class. Tessa squeezed her hand. You've got this. Just speak from the heart like you always do. The ceremony coordinator signaled. 5 minutes. Maya peeked through the curtain at the massive crowd. Graduates filled the main floor. Families packed the stands. News cameras lined the back. Somewhere out there, her mother sat in her wheelchair. Mrs. Patterson beside her, waiting to watch her daughter achieve something that had seemed impossible. The past 2 years played through Maya's mind like a movie. After that first viral post, after the movement started, everything had shifted. Not all at once. Not easily. But steadily, surely, things had changed. Visible struggles had exploded beyond what anyone expected. What started as 6 students meeting in an empty classroom had grown into a nationwide network. Over 100 universities now had active chapters. Thousands of students had shared their stories, pushed for changes, supported each other through struggles. The changes at Maya's university had been concrete and measurable. The emergency fund she'd fought for? It had helped over 300 students stay enrolled despite financial crises. The campus food pantry served 200 students weekly. The revised attendance policies had prevented dozens of students from failing classes they missed due to work obligations, but the impact went far beyond one campus. Other universities had taken notice. Some implemented similar programs voluntarily, not wanting to face their own viral moments. Students at schools across the country cited visible struggles when advocating for change. Maya's story became a case study in education policy courses. She'd spoken at 15 different universities over the past 2 years. Each time she saw the same thing. Students realizing they weren't alone, that their struggles were valid, that change was possible. The criticism had continued too. Not everyone loved what visible struggles represented. Some people still called it complaining, still said students should just work harder, still missed the point entirely. Maya had learned to let those voices fade into background noise. She couldn't control what others thought. She could only control her own actions and voice. Her grades had improved once she stopped trying to do everything alone. She'd finished with a 3.6 GPA. Not perfect, but respectable. More importantly, she'd learned things no classroom could teach: how to organize, how to advocate, how to turn pain into purpose. The graduate program had accepted her 2 years ago, and she'd deferred enrollment to finish her undergraduate degree. Now in the fall, she'd start her master's in public health policy. Full scholarship, stipend included, a chance to turn lived experience into professional expertise. Her mother's health had stabilized. Mrs. Patterson had become family. Her aunt had stepped up too, visiting weekly, helping with appointments and errands. Maya had learned to accept help, to trust others, to recognize that asking for support wasn't weakness. The hardest lesson maybe, but the most important one. 2 minutes, the coordinator called. Maya's hands shook. She looked at her speech notes one more time, but she'd memorized them weeks ago. The words weren't the problem. The emotion behind them was. How do you sum up 2 years of transformation? 2 years of growth and pain and victory and loss? 2 years that had fundamentally changed not just her life, but hundreds of lives? The music started. Pomp and circumstance. The processional. Maya took her place in line with the other student speakers and faculty members. They walked onto the stage. The crowd was even bigger than she'd thought. Thousands of faces, phones raised to record. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. She found her mother in the crowd. Even from the stage, she could see tears streaming down her face, pride radiating from her expression. That alone made everything worth it. The president of the university spoke first, then the valedictorian. Then it was Maya's turn. She walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone. looked out at her entire graduating class and their families and the cameras broadcasting this to even more people online. She took a breath and began. 2 years ago, I sat in the library at 2 in the morning, completely falling apart. I was working 3 jobs, caring for my disabled mother, trying to stay in school, and failing at all of it. I was exhausted, broke, desperate, and I felt completely alone. The crowd was silent. Maya could feel their attention like a physical thing. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I told the truth. I wrote a post about my struggle, about the reality of being a student who works 80 hours a week and still can't make ends meet, about choosing between electricity and medication, about feeling invisible while drowning in plain sight. I didn't think anyone would care. I just needed to say it out loud. To admit that I wasn't okay, that the system we tell students to trust wasn't working for students like me. But you all know what happened next. That post went viral. Hundreds of thousands of people saw it, shared it, commented on it, and suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. Maya paused, letting the memory wash over her. Here's what I learned from that experience, what I want to share with all of you today, whether you're graduating or watching someone you love graduate. First, your struggle is valid. Whatever you're going through, whatever keeps you up at night, whatever makes you feel like you're not enough, it's real. It matters, and it's not your fault. We live in a society that tells us if we're struggling, we're just not trying hard enough. If we can't afford college, we should have worked harder. If we're stressed, we should have managed our time better. If we're failing, we should have asked for help sooner. But that's not true. Systems can fail people. And when they do, the solution isn't for individuals to work harder. It's for systems to work better. Applause rippled through the crowd. Maya waited for it to quiet. Second, speaking up is terrifying, but silence is more dangerous. When I wrote that post, I was scared. Scared of judgment, scared of consequences, scared of being seen as weak. And yes, there were consequences. I lost a job. I faced criticism. I exposed myself in ways that felt uncomfortable and vulnerable. But staying silent was killing me slowly. The shame of struggling, the isolation of thinking I was alone, the exhaustion of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Speaking up gave me something silence never could. Connection, community, change. Maya's voice grew stronger, because that's the third lesson. You are not alone. Whatever you're facing, someone else has faced it too. Someone else understands. Someone else is fighting the same battles. After my post went viral, hundreds of students reached out to share their own stories. Students living in cars, students donating plasma to afford textbooks, students choosing between food and tuition, students suffering in silence because they thought they were the only ones. We started Visible Struggles to give those students a voice, to create community, to demand change, and it worked. Not because of me, because of us, because of every student who decided their struggle deserved to be seen and addressed. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya saw graduates standing, cheering. She saw parents crying. She saw her mother clutching Mrs. Patterson's hand. When the noise died down, she continued. Today, over 100 universities have Visible Struggles chapters. Thousands of students have shared their stories. Dozens of schools have implemented new support programs, emergency funds, food pantries, mental health resources. Policy changes. Is it enough? No. Is it perfect? Definitely not. Are students still struggling? Yes, every single day. But it's progress. Real, measurable progress. And it started because one tired, desperate student decided to tell the truth. Maya looked directly at the graduating class. So here's my challenge to all of you. As you leave this place and enter the world, take your truth with you. Whatever struggles you faced, whatever challenges you've overcome, whatever pain you've endured, don't hide it. Don't minimize it. Don't let anyone make you feel like it doesn't matter. Your story matters. Your experience matters. Your voice matters. And when you see systems that aren't working, speak up. When you see people suffering in silence, reach out. When you see injustice, fight it. Not because it's easy, because it's necessary. Change doesn't happen because powerful people suddenly decide to be generous. Change happens because ordinary people demand it. Because we refuse to accept broken systems. Because we believe in something better. Maya's voice caught with emotion. I'm standing here today because people believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Because strangers showed up with support when I was falling apart. Because a community formed around the simple idea that students shouldn't have to choose between survival and education. I'm standing here because I spoke up. and because thousands of people listened. But mostly I'm standing here because I refused to give up, even when it was hard, even when I wanted to quit, even when the path forward was unclear. She looked at her mother again. My mom taught me that. She taught me that strength isn't about never struggling. It's about getting up every time you fall. It's about asking for help when you need it. It's about believing tomorrow can be better than today. Tears streamed down Maya's face now. She didn't try to hide them. So thank you. To every student who shared their story. To every faculty member who advocated for change. To every donor who contributed to the emergency fund. To every volunteer who stocked the food pantry. To every person who saw a problem and decided to be part of the solution. Thank you to Professor Chen, who turned my moment of crisis into an opportunity for growth. To my roommate Tessa, who never let me give up on myself. To Mrs. Patterson, who gave my mother care and gave me peace of mind. And thank you to my mother, who sacrificed everything to give me opportunities she never had. Who believed in my education even when we couldn't afford electricity. Who taught me that circumstances don't define us, our choices do. Maya took a shaky breath. Class of 2027, we made it. Through late nights and hard times. Through struggles seen and unseen. Through challenges that tested everything we had. We made it not because we're special or extraordinary, but because we're stubborn, because we refused to let circumstances defeat us, because we supported each other through the darkness. As we leave here today, we carry more than degrees. We carry stories. We carry scars. We carry wisdom earned through difficulty. We carry the knowledge that we're stronger than we knew. Take that strength into the world. Use your voice to speak truth. Use your experiences to create understanding. Use your struggles to fuel compassion. And remember, you are never alone. Your struggle is valid. Your voice matters. And change is always possible if we're brave enough to demand it. Maya's voice rose with conviction. The internet heard my story, but more importantly, it amplified it. It connected struggling students across the country. It created a movement that continues today, that will continue tomorrow, that will continue as long as there are students willing to speak up and fight for better. That's my hope for all of you, that you'll carry this lesson forward, that you'll remember your struggles made you who you are, that you'll use your voices to make the world a little bit better. Because that desperate post I wrote at 2 a.m, that was just the beginning. The real story, the important story, is what came after. The community we built, the changes we created, the lives we touched. That's the story I want you to remember. Not one girl struggling alone, but thousands of students standing together, refusing to be invisible, demanding to be seen and supported. Maya smiled through her tears. Congratulations, class of 2027. We did it. Not in spite of our struggles, but because of them. Our challenges shaped us. Our difficulties strengthened us. Our struggles connected us. Now let's go change the world. The crowd exploded. Everyone standing. Applause thundering. Cheers echoing. Maya stood at the podium, overwhelmed by the response, by the moment, by the journey that had led her here. She'd started with nothing but exhaustion and desperation and a laptop in a dark library. She was ending with a degree, a community, a movement, and hope for the future. After the ceremony, people mobbed her, fellow graduates hugging her, parents thanking her, faculty members congratulating her, news crews wanting interviews. But Maya pushed through all of it to find her mother. She knelt beside the wheelchair and they held each other, both crying happy tears. "I'm so proud of you," her mother whispered. "So proud. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have, but I'm glad you didn't have to." That night, Maya sat on her apartment balcony with Tessa, looking at the city lights. "You did good," Tessa said. "We did good," Maya corrected. "None of this was just me." "True, but you started it. You were brave enough to speak up when it mattered." Maya thought about that, about the scared, exhausted girl who'd typed a desperate post at 2 a.m., about everything that had spiraled from that single moment of honesty. "You know what's wild?" Maya said. "I almost deleted that post. My finger was literally hovering over the delete button. What stopped you? I don't know. Exhaustion, maybe. Or maybe some part of me knew that staying silent was worse than being seen." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "What happens now?" Tessa asked. Maya smiled. "Now? I moved to start grad school. I keep working with visible struggles, but from a different role. I study policy so I can create systemic solutions instead of just treating symptoms."